Today, I want to show you a dead simple weekly review strategy for Christians who want to get more done. If you follow this step-by-step plan, it will help you more intentionally steward each week of your life. Now, if you don't know what weekly review is, basically it's a simple scheduled time that you do every single week where you reflect on the week before and you plan for the week to come. And I really think it's just a key rhythm for anybody who's trying to live a productive life. But it's all the more important for believers when we're trying to intentionally steward our lives well for God's glory. Let me give you a couple reasons for why you need a weekly review, and then we'll look at a strategy for how you can actually implement one. The first reason you need a weekly review is because your week is a stewardship. Each week, God gives you a new set of tasks, a new set of challenges, a new set of opportunities. How are you going to handle this new week? Right? That's what we're addressing with the weekly review is we're saying, hey, how do I steward this new week well? I find that most people, they lack clarity and they lack purpose in their work because they don't have a specific plan for a weekly review. They're go, Monday through Friday, and they never really pause to consider if they're running in the right direction. And what a weekly review allows you to do is it forces you to stop, reflect, and pray about your work. Weekly review also creates awareness. It allows you to survey everything that's going on. Again, it's like a checkup for you. You know what's happening because you're actually looking. Oh, here's what I got done. Here's what's not done. Here's the areas where things didn't go so well. Hey, I should adjust this in my schedule. This meeting seems to always come up against the time when I'm right in the middle of my most important projects. A weekly review also keeps you organized, right? It's a dedicated time to catch up on things. Part of my weekly review is clearing out all my inboxes. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but it just makes sure never anything gets too far out of control. I always clean my office at least once a week because papers pile up, messes get crazy, and a weekly review is another chance to get that stuff right. And again, it generates clarity of priority and direction. A weekly review, you're just constantly asking, am I headed in the right direction? Am I doing the right stuff? What needs to change? It says in Galatians 6:9, and let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. You say, well, how does this apply to weekly reviews? Well, my point is simply that a weekly review forces you to zoom out and to realign your priorities with God's. It forces you to say, why am I doing what I'm doing? We get so caught up, so myopic, so stuck in the details of our lives that we forget, let's not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. If you know that your work is a stewardship from God, that you're doing it not just for the paycheck and not just so you don't get in trouble, not so you don't get fired, but you're doing your work because you want to glorify God with it, and you know that He ultimately will reward us for being faithful to Him, that we're serving the Lord Christ, as it says in Colossians, then you need a chance to remind yourself of that truth so you don't get so bogged down in, oh, I hate this work. Oh, there's so much I have to do. Oh, it's so frustrating. Weekly review forces you to zoom out. So how do you make one? Let's talk about the weekly review plan. Let me give you a simple action plan to start having a weekly review of your own. If you sort of follow these few steps, you'll have something set up that you can repeat week after week after week after week, and hopefully will help you to stay on the right track. So step 1, plan the time. So you want to choose a day, you want to choose a time, and you want to put it on your calendar. That's all step 1. Choose a day, time, and the calendar. This is the best way to ensure that you actually do the weekly review. If you say, oh, I want to have a weekly review every Sunday, put it on the calendar. Treat it like an appointment. What day should you do it? Well, it tends to be most people do them either a Sunday, a Friday, or a Monday. That is just what I've gotten from surveying people in our Redeeming Productivity Academy community. Some people like to do the reviews on Sunday afternoon or evening. The idea there is it sort of lets you lay out a plan for the week ahead without any distractions, right? If you don't have any obligations in the afternoon or the evenings on Sunday, you're like, okay, I can hit the ground running on Monday. This is also a good option people have found if you do this with a spouse. So if you have a wife or husband in on this with you, you can plan together and sort of have this set thing where you can meet together on a Sunday. Personally, I like to do my weekly reviews on Friday afternoons. The workday at that point is kind of over, And so I will, near the end of the day, just kind of stop working on any projects I had going on and say, all right, let's do the weekly review. But whatever time you choose, again, put it on your calendar. Keep it like it's an appointment with yourself. Don't schedule anything else at that time. Step 2 is create a checklist. So when you sit down to your weekly review, you need some kind of script, right? To make sure that you hit everything that you want to review. In David Allen's book, Getting Things Done, he says all weekly reviews should have 3 sections. He calls them Get Clear, Get Current, and Get Creative. And I like these. So I'm going to borrow these from David Allen, give you a couple examples of these. So you should have a checklist that you follow during your weekly reviews for each of these. So get clear. All right, how do we get clear? Well, this is where you process all of your loose ends. This would be catching up on emails, finishing up to-do list tasks or bumping in the next week, putting any papers that need to be processed away. If there's physical mail you need to open and process, do that then. Tidy up your workspace. The idea is just all these like half-done things. I want some dedicated time each week where I can kind of catch up and make sure that all that's done. Again, this is one of the reasons I like to do my weekly reviews on Friday, because my kind of work week ends on Friday, and I like to go into the weekend with sort of a clear head and a clear desk and a clear inbox. Second, you want to get current. Make sure all of your appointments are up to date. So this is where you pop open the calendar. You review the past week. How did things go? Anything I need to change? Was it busy? Was it not busy? Right? What can I thank the Lord for? What can I be praying about as I'm thinking about the next week? And then look ahead of the next week. What are the upcoming things? Is there anything I forgot to put on the calendar? Right? Look at all that right now so you can kind of have in your head, okay, that's what next week's going to look like. I have a worksheet for this too. I'll include a link to it in the show notes and description if you want to download it. It's a PDF. You can print it out, but it's got a checkbox for each of these things I talked about. And there's some reflection questions too, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But just wanted to point that out, is you don't have to make your own checklist. You can use the one I made or just use it as a starting place and then build on it as you get used to this practice. The last step of your checklist in step 2 is, okay, we've gotten clear, we've gotten current. Now we want to get creative. What's very interesting is once you get to the end of all this sort of like piddly stuff, getting all these loose ends wrapped up, what you'll find is ideas just start popping up. Ideas of how to improve, ideas of like, what if we did this? Very often we're so buried all the time with way too many loose ends. David Allen calls them open loops in our heads, where it's like, I've got 15 half-done projects. I don't have the mental bandwidth to think about potential things or to get creative about stuff. But when you're actually setting up and closing those loops at the end of the week, you have these flood of ideas that just seem to fill that vacuum that you've opened up by closing those other loops. One of the reasons I like to add to this part of my weekly review is reviewing my well done statement. If you don't know what that is, you can look it up on my YouTube channel. But a well done statement is basically a Christ-centered vision statement where you're saying, this is what I hope that the Lord would say to me about my faithfulness in each major area of life. You read that at this point, after you've closed all these loops, I can guarantee you will come up with ideas. You'll start to get excited. You'll say, okay, what goals can I set around these? You'll pull out some old goals. You'll look at your projects. You'll record any ideas that come to mind. You're going to just be all through this. You're going to be thinking, wow, there's so much stuff I could be doing. And I think that's really fun and really exciting. And that sort of often lays the groundwork for future goals for me. And I would just say this on the point of weekly reviews. If you aren't doing a weekly review currently, I would guess, depending on how busy your life is, you probably have a lot of commitments and projects that are falling through the cracks, maybe even more than you realize, because you're just operating at this level where you're sort of winging it day to day. Weekly review gives you kind of that 10,000 foot view, and it lets you do that every single week so you don't miss stuff. But let's talk about the third step. So after you create a checklist, you also want to reflect and pray. Now that you've wrapped your head around the previous week and you're thinking about the week to come, spend some time thinking and praying. I like to ask and answer these 4 reflection questions in a journal or on paper or just praying. Let me give you an acronym because I like acronyms. We'll use the acronym WEEK. So these are the 4 reflection questions you should ask yourselves. The first one is the W, which is walk. How was my walk with the Lord this week? Again, it's a little personal checkup. How am I doing? Was I in the Word? Was I praying consistently? Was I even thinking about the things of the Lord, or was I so fixated on earthly things? Ask that and answer it honestly and prayerfully. The first E in our acronym, so W is walk, the first E is endeavors. Did I make significant progress on my goals, habits, and projects this week? My endeavors. What were the wins? Where can I improve? Again, if you do this while journaling, which is how I like to do it, use these as little journaling prompts. Man, it feels really good to go through each of these and be really honest, because that reflected activity makes you make the changes that are necessary. The second E, so we have walk, endeavor, and then energy, is what were the things that gave me energy this week? What were the things that took it away? How do I increase the things that give me energy and decrease the ones that suck it away from me? This is a bigger topic. Maybe I can do a whole episode on this at some point, but this idea of energy, it sounds a little woo-woo. What I mean by that is simply, I think that often when we are leaning into the vocation God's given us, yes, there's challenges. Yes, even when we're doing our calling, it's difficult. There's thorns and there's thistles. But I really do think, just at like a gut level, an instinctual level, when you're doing the kind of stuff God made you to do, it lights you up. It lights you up. You enjoy it, right? You feel like, hey, I'm using all of the talents God's given me. I'm working at full capacity here, stewarding everything He gave me. And so doing this little energy level check, at least for me, I found it to be a helpful way to just, with a single question, be like, what was the stuff that was really draining? What was the stuff that really I did find helpful, that really did light me up? And if I optimize for the stuff that does light me up, I tend to be leaning more into my giftings and into my strengths, and trying to be more strategic about letting other people do the stuff that are my weaknesses that might be their strengths, or cutting out stuff that I don't need to be doing at all that's just a weakness, and it's actually taking away time from what I could be giving to what God has uniquely enabled me to do. The fourth and final question is our K in our week, and that is knots with a K. So not knots, N-O-T-S, but knots, K-N-O-T-S. What's on my mind? What are the knotty issues that I need to untie? What's the next action I need to take them and get off of my mind? So we talked before about open loops. This is sort of another rope-based analogy, but knots. There are a lot of different thorny things, kind of stuff we're thinking through, big questions, big problems that can be work-related, relationships, those kind of things. This is a neat thing to ask yourself at the end of each week. Hey, there's these things that are bugging me. Now that I've gotten all this other stuff off my mind, these things kind of have a chance to bubble to the surface, these knotty issues. Spend some time praying about those. Spend some time thinking, what can I do as a next step to maybe start to untie this? Is there someone I need to call? Is there something that needs to be repented of? Is there a project that needs to be created in my system? Is there a task or a follow-up? Right? Having a chance to just ask that question will prompt you to deal with some of these issues instead of just doing what most of us do, which is hiding them behind the busyness of everyday life. And I do think this is one of the ways we do a disservice to ourselves and to the Lord, is we use busyness as a veil for trying to hide the stuff we don't want to deal with. And a weekly review, one of the reasons you might be resistant to it, honestly, is because it is going to help force you to deal with stuff maybe you don't want to deal with. And I do think at just an emotional level, a lot of people think, I want to get more organized, I want to be more a better manager of my time, but they don't take the steps to do that. In part because it's hard. Yeah, I get it. I'm trying to make it easier by laying out some steps for you. But I think one of the big reasons, honestly, is because we don't want to face what's on the other side of it. If I actually pulled back and had things organized, I'd have to deal with, well, where am I going? What should I be doing? What about these big issues I've been hiding from? And this is just a very practical thing. Doing a weekly review is going to help you to face up to those. And guess what? That's a good thing, because you have a chance to deal with them prayerfully before the Lord. All right, last section here. I want to talk about putting your weekly review into action. I want to give you a few next steps, so you don't just go away from here and say, hey, that's a good idea. I want to actually help you. I want, as a next step, here's what you're going to do. Plan the time and the place. When and where am I going to do my weekly review? Okay? When and where am I going to do it? Is it going to be Friday? Is it going to be Sunday? Is it going to be Monday? Is it going to be a different day? It doesn't matter. Pick the day and pick the time. Put it on the calendar right now. Create your checklist, or just download the worksheet that's in the description if you want to use mine. But just say, here's the things I'm going to review. And then finally, if you want it, grab the worksheet. It'll help you. It has all those prompts we talked about too. They may be slightly different worded, but they all cover the same areas. And that will help you put the weekly review into action. So I would love for you to try it. Honestly, it would mean the world to me if you would give this a shot. It has been very life-changing for myself. I've been doing this for years. It's been what helps me to stay focused week to week and not just live under the tyranny of the urgent. And I really do think having a Christ-honoring weekly review can be a critical and simple strategy that'll help you more glorify God with your life. Because here's the thing, guys. Living a God-glorifying life, it does not happen by accident. It requires intentionality. And a weekly review is simply a tool that forces you to pause and think so that you can be a better steward of the time that God has loaned to you. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I'll see you again here next week, Lord willing.